Welcome to Game Fondue Reviews. In this video, we're going to take a look at Thunderstone. Thunderstone is a deck-building dungeon crawl game. Let's jump right in with the description of the rules, see a few example turns being played, then I'll be back for some closing remarks. This is Thunderstone, set up for a two-player game. To make it easy, we use the recommended first game setup. But normally what you would do is you would shuffle the randomizers and you would draw 3 monster randomizers, and what you do there is you take the 10 cards of each monster type and form a deck out of them, and in the bottom 10 cards you shuffle in the Thunderstone. So you know it's somewhere in those bottom 11 cards, and then you lay out 3 monsters like so that form the dungeon. Next you shuffle the hero randomizers and you draw 4 heroes and you lay those heroes out in stacks below the basic cards. These 4 cards and diseases are always used in every game. And the heroes you always put in level order. You'll see his level here on the side, so the 1s go above the 2s and then the 2s above the 3s like so. Next you draw and shuffle 8 randomizers for the villages. They might look something like this, and you just lay out those cards accordingly. Also, if you're just playing the base Thunderstone, there's these XP cards that can go somewhere nearby. Each player forms their starting deck by taking 6 militia, 2 dagger, 2 iron rations, and 2 torches, and shuffles them together, and then draws a hand of 6 cards. The remainder form his or her personal deck, which they're going to use throughout the game. So you're going to pick a player to go first, and then play is going to proceed clockwise on a player's turn. They can either go to the village, enter the dungeon, or rest. And the game continues until the Thunderstone reaches rank 1 of the dungeon. This is rank 1, rank 2, rank 3, and then the dungeon deck. Once that happens, players total the victory points in their deck, and you can see some of the monsters have victory points in the bottom corner, and whoever has the most points wins. So let's first talk about visiting the village. The first thing you do is you must reveal your hand so everybody can see it, and then if you have any cards that say village on them, like this one here, you can use those effects. You don't have to, they're totally optional, but normally you can only use each effect 1 time. However, some will say repeat in front of village, which means you can do it as many times as you want, but there's usually a cost associated with it, which has to be paid each time. After that, you count up the value of your gold, and you can see on the cards the gold value is right here. So this is worth 2, and this other torch is worth 2, and this dagger is worth 1. These militias aren't worth any, so I'd have 5 gold. I can buy 1 card up to or less than 5 money value. The cost is right here in the middle, so unfortunately I wouldn't be able to buy this fireball because it costs 9. I only have 5 money, and I can only buy 1 card. When I buy a card, it goes to my discard pile, so if for instance I bought Lorig Thug, she would go face up to my discard pile because she costs 5. At this point in my turn, if I have experience points, I can use them to upgrade my heroes. You'll see they have a certain number down here in purple. For instance, the militias cost 3 and Lorig would cost 2. If you're upgrading a specific type of hero, they must upgrade to the next level of that type. So when you do this, you destroy the card, which means it's removed from the game. It's not in the discard pile. And then you would take the next level and add that to your discard pile. You know it's the next level because it has a 2 here, like so. Each hero can be upgraded during your turn or leveled up, but you cannot level up 1 hero twice. So even if you had enough experience points, Lorig could not go straight from level 1 to level 3 in a turn. Also, if there were no level 2s left, unfortunately Lorig Thief would not be able to level up because you cannot skip any levels. Militias count as a hero of level 0, so they can level up at a cost of 3 to any of these level 1 heroes here. And they do that by paying the amount of XP which you get by killing monsters, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But then at the end of your turn in the village, you just discard all the cards in your hand to your discard pile and draw a hand of 6 more. You only reshuffle your discard pile to form a new deck if your deck is out and you must draw cards, which we haven't quite reached yet, but we will soon. Instead of visiting the village during a turn, you could enter the dungeon. If you choose to enter the dungeon, again, you must reveal your whole hand, and if there's any dungeon effects, you can use any or all of them that you'd like. For instance, this dungeon effect allows me to increase a hero's strength by 2. If I choose to do that, I can at this time. I can also equip weapons to heroes based on their strength. You can see the strength of this militia is 2, and the weight of this dagger is 2. If the strength equals or is greater than the weight, he can hold it. But he can only hold 1 weapon, so even if we had a whole bunch of other weapons he could hold, it's 1 per. And the weapon only adds its effect if it's actually equipped. So if this dagger was not equipped for any reason, it would not add attack plus 1 to the battle value. There's actually 2 classes of attack. There's magic attack and just regular old physical attack. And you calculate both separately when you're going into the dungeon, but you do add them together to calculate your total. Just some things are immune to certain types. After you equip your weapons, you pick one of the 3 face-up monsters in the dungeon to attack, and you need to exceed his health value, which is up here, in order to destroy him. Equal or exceed, and he will be done. So at least 5 in that case. So right here we have a militia worth 1, plus a dagger worth 2, and then a militia that's 3, and right there would be 4. So altogether we would have 4 attack at this point, which unfortunately wouldn't be enough to defeat him. But we also have to factor in light. The farthest away from the deck has a light penalty of 1, this is 2, and this is 3. And the way you do that is you take the light penalty and you check if you have any light. This torch gives 1 light, so we would be totally okay to fight this guy. There would be no penalty at all, but there would still be some existing penalties against these two here. And the way any holding penalty against light works is you multiply the remainder by 2. So for example, if we were to fight this guy with 1 light when we normally need 3, we'd have 2 leftover light that we were unable to supply. So that would mean we would lose 4 strength while attacking him. Also, some cards have this symbol like diseases, and when that comes up, it's mandatory. This must be used when you're attacking a monster, and many times they're bad, but some of the monsters have some effects too that aren't so bad. Like you'll see here, this one is magic plus 2. So that can be very nice. Also, monsters have battle effects that take place when you attack them. So for instance, this would make you gain 1 disease. Any gained cards go to your discard pile as normal, but it's still something to watch out for. Also, anytime a card is destroyed, for instance, this destroys 1 food, that card would stay in front of you until the end of the turn, and then it's destroyed. So this Iron Rations would still be in play until the end. But as we know, we weren't quite strong enough to destroy this guy, but let's pretend we had 1 more attack, and we did take him down. So what happens when you take him down is you take this many experience points, so in this case 1, and you just take that in front of you. It doesn't go in your deck, and you're going to have this many victory points in your deck. So he goes to your discard pile, and he's going to get shuffled in like normal, but if he ever comes up, his battle effect doesn't do anything. That's only when you're actually attacking him. And then you would shift these down and flip out a new card. There are some cards with breach effects, and when they reach rank 1, those happen immediately before the end of your turn. There's none right here, so it's nothing to worry about. It's also important to note that if a card with a breach effect starts the game in rank 1, you just ignore that effect. It's not going to take place. If you were not strong enough to defeat the monster, he's actually just going to go to the bottom of the deck, and you're still going to replace as normal. So in that case, you may not want to go to the dungeon, but sometimes there's cards that have different effects that allow you to draw, so you may not be totally sure if you're going to win or not. So as normal, at the end of your turn, you discard your hand, and then you draw back up to 6 cards. You may need to reshuffle your deck. Lastly, if you don't choose to visit the village or enter the dungeon, you can rest. And all you do to rest is you just pick one of the cards in your hand, and you destroy it. You remove it from the game, and then that's your turn. The game proceeds like this until the Thunderstone reaches the rank 1 space, and here's the Thunderstone. When that happens, if you did it by defeating this monster, in addition to getting this monster, you're going to get that Thunderstone too. But if the Thunderstone goes for any other reason, like the monster wasn't defeated or just a card removed somebody, nobody gets it, but the game still ends. So at that point, you take your deck, your discard pile in your hand, and you add up the number of points here, and whoever has the most points wins. Let's get going with this example playthrough. We put the hands face up. Of course, they're not during the game, but it just makes it a little bit easier to see. So we're going to start with this guy, and he's going to choose to just rest this turn. So he's going to take a militia, and he's going to destroy it, so it's totally out of the game. Then he's going to discard his hand and draw a new hand of 6. And then we're going to go over to this guy. He's going to visit the village. So first thing he does is he reveals his hand, which you can already see, and he can use any village effects at this time. He doesn't have any, so he chooses to buy. He has 2, 4, 5 money here between his torches and his dagger. So he's going to buy this Battle Fury, which costs 3. So it's going to go to his discard pile. At this time, he could upgrade anybody with experience, but he doesn't have any experience points yet. So he's just going to put that there and then draw a new hand of 6. So it's going to go back to this guy. And he's got a whole bunch of militia, a torch, and iron rations, and a dagger. He's also going to go to the village and buy a Battle Fury as well. So he's going to put that in there, take these, and now that his deck is run out, he's going to reshuffle them, and he's going to draw a new hand of 6 cards, like so, and he's going to have that in front of him. Now it's this player's turn, and again, he can either rest, enter the dungeon, or go to the village. We're going to jump ahead a little bit to when somebody does go to the dungeon. Welcome back. It's this player's turn, and he decided he's going to go to the dungeon, so the first thing he does is he reveals his hand. He decides that he's going to equip this dagger to this militia, though he could equip it to the Therian Squire as well. And then he's going to use the Therian Squire's dungeon ability as destroy 1 food for an additional +2 attack. So now his attack is 4. The militia's is 5. With the dagger, it's 6. Then he also has a torch to give him a little bit of light. So normally the light penalty here would be 2, so he wouldn't be quite strong enough because then he would be down to only 4 strength because he's at 6. But he has that torch, so he has enough light to attack this first place without any type of deduction. So he attacks and he defeats this guy. He gets the 1 experience point, and then he's going to put him in his discard pile. And he also has to gain a disease because that was this guy's battle effect. So that's kind of bad, but he gets those 3 points, and then he refills the dungeon. And at the end of his turn, he's just going to discard all these. and draw back up to 6. Welcome back. It's this player's turn, and he's going to the dungeon now. He's got this Fireball, which is a spell, so it always works, even if he didn't have any heroes. So he's got 3 attack, 4, 5, and he's equipped him with this. So he's at 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 attack. That's a lot of attack, but he only has 1 light, so he has to keep that in mind when he goes real deep. So if he's going to go all the way out here, it'd normally be -6, but since he has 1 light, he's just missing 2, so it's -4. So he'd still have 9 attack, so that's enough to defeat this guy, so that's what he's going to do, because his strength is 6. So he gets 3 points in his deck and 2 experience points. Now also, it's important to note that he has a spoils effect. What happens with spoils is when you defeat him, you can immediately buy 1 card using the money value you have in front of you of that type. This is a spoils food. He decides he doesn't want to do that, but if for some reason you had multiple spoils effects go off in a turn, you can use your full money value both times. You don't have to divide it out. But anyway, this goes to his discard pile, and his turn is over. This guy's turn now, and he's going to go to the village. He's first going to use his money. He has 7 of it to buy a Therian Squire, so he puts that in his discard pile. And now he can upgrade his units. He only has 1 hero in his hand. If he had more than 1, he could do more than 1. But this guy costs 2, so he returns those 2 XP, destroys him, he's out of the game, but then gets the level 2 version of that same guy, puts him in his discard pile. So now he's going to have that in his deck as well, and as normal, discards his hand and then draws a new hand of 6 cards. We'll be back at the end of the game to see the final situation. Welcome back. It's pretty much the end of the game. You can see the Thunderstone here, and it's this guy's turn. So he's going to go into the dungeon. He gets +1 attack from this, and this is mandatory, but that's a good thing. And he's got this Sorcerer. Note that none of these battle effects do anything. It's only other effects, and he still has a Militia here. So his total is 3, 4, 5 attack, 4 of which is magic attack, and he has 2 light. That Sorcerer provides 2 light, so he's going to defeat this guy. That makes him destroy 1 spell. He doesn't have any spells, but he still gets the XP. And now, because the Thunderstone goes to the first space, the game is over. And because he defeated a monster to make it happen, and it didn't happen by a card effect or losing a battle, he gets the Thunderstone as well. So at this point, everybody puts all their deck and hands and discards together and counts the number of victory points in this corner. Whoever has the most points is going to be the winner. I kind of missed the bus in reviewing Thunderstone because now there's Thunderstone Advanced, which they've replaced the Militia with regulars, which are a little bit better in your deck, so they have more utility. Also, they've leveled the monsters, so there's monsters of different levels depending how difficult you want the game to be, and a few other things that really do streamline and make the game a little bit better. So if you're new to Thunderstone, I suggest you start there, but I still play this and I still enjoy it. It's basically a deck building game with a story added, so if others are a little bit too dry for you, this might be a nice one. It's nice to, be able to go in the dungeon and go in the village, but it still plays like a deck building game where you understand, the choices that are available to you, and it goes very quickly. Your turns are not very long, so that keeps it fun and keeps it engaging. So if this one looked interesting to you, check out Thunderstone or Thunderstone Advance.